Welcome into another episode of the William Penn Coaches Show, hosted here at Trio. Starting things out is going to be the head men's wrestling coach, Drew Sams. Coach, it's your first time being on the show since the start of your season. Can you just kind of break down and recap your first duel and tournament so far?
Yeah, so like you said, we've had a duel. We wrestled St. Ambrose, traveled to their place. Didn't really go the way that we expected. I think our guys came out, a little bit flat. I changed a little bit with our preseason this year, so I'm putting a little bit of that on me. I think the way that we prepared probably wasn't the best for starting the season out strong. But kudos to St. Ambrose. They had a really hostile crowd. It was a really tough environment to go in and compete. But, I thought our guys did a good job, handling everything outside of the duel. Their weight, I wasn't worried about, guys' weight at all. I wasn't worried about how we, looked heading into the competition. I just think we came out a little bit flat, in the actual duel. So, gave up a couple wins. And that duel ended up, obviously, coming away with a loss, but I think gave us a lot to work on. We've been hitting things pretty hard the last couple weeks, to make sure that, our shape is in the right place and, that our pace is going to be good moving forward. After St. Ambrose duel, we took, a lot of our young guys, anybody that didn't wrestle in the duel, over to, up to Indianola to the Luther Hill invite, and, really the idea behind that one is just get some early matches on our bodies, especially our freshmen, sophomores. We put a big emphasis on, wrestling a lot of tournaments, getting a lot of matches. So, really, important to get that first one out of the way and, just try to get as many matches as we can. The more matches we get, the more we can take back to the room and, find things that we need to work on.
So you mentioned that mat time with your guys going to tournaments. So far this season you competed in one duel, one tournament. Can you talk about the benefits of going to a duel versus a tournament, or vice versa, whatever you think is more beneficial for your guys? Yeah,
I think ultimately I'm big on, dueling a little bit heavier second semester. I like, using first semester to really, get to tournaments, like I said, get as many matches early on as we can, just so that, we can really find the things that, we need to work on. We talk to our guys a lot about, we're not peaking in November, December. We're not trying to wrestle our best right now. We're trying to find everything that, every little input that we can bring in to, make sure that we're putting the best product out there in February and March. So tournaments obviously allow us to get more matches. It's double elimination. We got some guys wrestling deep into the day. We have a 6-match limit in tournaments, so you're guaranteed two to 6 matches at a tournament versus a duel. We wrestle in a lot of single duels, so you're gearing up and you're trying to get ready. You have you had a full week to prepare, and then you wrestle one match. So early on, I definitely prefer wrestling more of a heavy tournament schedule first semester, and then second semester, like I said, we've got a lot of inputs, a lot of matches under our belts from first semester, and then we can hit kind of our dual schedule a little bit heavier and really turn it on for our duels.
So you mentioned that heavy tournament schedule in this early semester and the fall semester. So you guys are going to the Grandview Open this coming weekend. Can you kind of just talk about what you want to see out of your guys to have them be successful?
Yeah, we're trying to have kind of a mini peak this weekend. The Grandview Open's one of the toughest first semester tournaments that we can go to. We've got, guys from all over the country that are nationally ranked in the NAIA, and then you've also got, you got a lot of, D1. You'll see Iowa State, UNI. You'll see a lot of their redshirt freshmen. You'll see, some backups, and heck, the number one dude in the country 2 years ago wrestled in the Grandview Open, so NCAA D1 wrestler. So we'll see a lot of competition there. Again, it's really important for our freshmen. We're going to wrestle them in a freshman sophomore division. It's really important just to get as many matches as we can, really open up and see what we need to work on. And then for our guys in the open division, that we're bringing a couple of our starters to compete. So we really want to, wrestle really well this weekend to try and steal some, nationally ranked matchups to just, continue to help solidify ourselves in the national rankings and, continue to build a case for our conference to have a bid when it comes time for, the conference tournament to qualify for our national tournament.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. That is head men's wrestling coach Drew Sams. You can catch them this weekend at the Grandview Open.
Thank you.
We are now here with our second coach, the head women's basketball coach here at William Penn, Sean Bedford.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Coach, just jumping right into this, you guys are really early in your season, couple wins, couple really close matchups. Can you just kind of recap the season so far?
Yeah, so, we got 4 losses. Honestly, we probably should be at worst 3-3, maybe even 4-2. But 3 out of the 4 losses that we have been teams that played in the national tournament. And as every coach in here probably knows, experience and your culture and what you kind of build. Our football team's doing it right now. And I told our girls, we only got 2 girls that played varsity minutes last year. Some of these teams that are playing, they kind of got their stuff set, and we're going to get there one day. But it'd be cool if we can get there sooner than later. But lost some close games, lost by 1 to St. Ambrose, lost by 10 last night in a game where we missed 15 free throws against a team that played in the national tournament last year. So 2-4 right now, but I think we're trending in the right direction. My biggest thing and my biggest message to the girls are, don't get discouraged, right? We're doing a lot of good things, and we'll catch some teams that aren't as talented as the teams we played recently, and hopefully we can get some confidence and kind of keep building. But they've been awesome. They work really hard. Now we got to be able to work hard and execute at the same time. But it's been a pleasure these first 6 games to be the head coach, and I'm fortunate enough to be around these girls every day. So, Coach, we chatted last week about the early growth of your team. In what aspect has this team grown the most in your eyes? Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now, our confidence. And I keep telling them, your confidence comes from your preparation. And so a lot of our girls are spending more time in the gym, watching film, just doing little stuff. And I think I always try to give them the perspective of everything you do has got to be basketball, right? How you sleep, how you eat, what you watch, what you read, everything's got to be dictated towards basketball. And so they're kind of taking my mindset on that. And that's the most thing I'm proud of them about, just working towards trying to be better. You lose by 1 and you lose by 10 on the road in a game where you should have won. It's easy to not show up today. And after we got home at 3 o'clock in the morning, but we had 6 girls, in my office watching film. We had girls getting up shots. A couple girls got a lift in. So that's where I want our program to be, always moving forward and learning from your losses. Absolutely, Coach. One last question for you. So you guys are heading to Benedictine this Saturday. You talk about how you guys are right on that edge in some of these games. What improvements are you looking for out of your team this Saturday? Yeah, so the biggest thing is they're really, really tall, and they do a really good job at a 2-2-1 press, and we might need to add that in at some point. But our biggest thing is we got to take care of the basketball. Got to value the basketball, and you got to be able to make free throws and shots around the basket on the road. But that's going to be our challenge. We're going to work on it tomorrow. We got film. We're going to also work on a different type of press break to kind of get us into our offense. And I'm more of an offensive guy, and we're struggling to score, so it's keeping me up at night. Our defense is doing a pretty good job, so I'm going to give Coach Coffey a shout-out on that. But I got to figure out our offense, and that's my job, to put these girls in situations where they can be successful. But our biggest thing against Benedictine is we got to take care of the ball, got to box out, got to handle the pressure a little bit. So it'll be fun. We've honestly – the last couple years, we've kind of played them tough. I think we lost in overtime one game, and I think we lost a close battle in the second half one of the times we played. So I'll use that to our advantage a little bit, but it should be fun. They're a great program. Chad does a great job with them, and I'm learning from their program as well as a young coach. So it'll be fun. No, there's nothing better than a road Saturday game, and I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Coach. That is women's head basketball coach Sean Bedford. You can catch him up next this Saturday at Benedictine. Tip-off is at 5 o'clock. We are here with our final coach of the evening. It is the William Penn head football coach, Mark Benavides. Coach, it's been about 2 weeks since we last had you on. You mentioned how important these last 2 games were. You kept mentioning how these ones were the most important, and you've said that every week to us. The next one's the most important one. Can you just kind of recap how important those games were and how they went?
Yeah, very important. No, those are definitely games we had circled on the schedule going into the season. We know, Peru State and Graceland, those 2 teams we haven't beat in a while. Peru State 2016 and Graceland, I think 2021. And knowing how tight we were, for us to get over the hump, for us to be as successful as we want to be, It comes down to kind of beating those teams that might not be the conference champion, but they're middle of the pack or above average. And again, those are huge. It all leads, obviously, to the biggest game of the year. This one we got that's coming up here on Saturday.
So, Coach, we've talked a ton about your team's success this year, 9-1 so far. What sets this team apart compared to teams you've had or teams you've played?
Yeah, I'd say a big one for teams I've had here at William Penn is just simply the experience, guys understanding what the expectations are, and being able to be focused. Bringing up like those past couple games, the weather kind of being iffy against Peru State, the weather kind of being suspect at times against Graceland, and how difficult that was. Those guys, it didn't matter. They were focused on what they had to worry about, what they had to do, and knowing there's 11 guys on the field at one time, and just simply executing. The focus was unbelievable. And on top of that, you have it to where guys might complain about things, or it's November football. It's not easy. And yet guys still understand what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to do. They're still practicing hard. This week, typically this is when you talk about, hey, guys, you're going to turn your pads in on Monday. And that's not the case necessarily right now. And so these guys understand how important this game is. It's coming up, and they're still focused and locked in and doing whatever they got to do to go win.
So perfect pivot for us to talk about this Saturday. You guys head to St. Ambrose for your last regular season game. What are the keys of the closing game of the regular season?
Yeah, always, the trenches, got to make sure you win in the trenches. Offense and defensive line, got to take care of it. But we know St. Ambrose, I believe they're a 4-win team right now. They've been up and down to an extent, but they're going to have a lot of motivation. I think they've won 3 of their last 4. It's going to be their senior day. It's supposed to be absolutely beautiful weather in Davenport, and we got to make sure that we're simply going out there and executing. We are definitely not looking down on our opponent whatsoever. We know I had a really, really tight game against those guys last year. You had a great call on our 60-yard touchdown to go win it at the end of the game there. There you go. But at the end of the day, again, our guys going out there just like every week, going out there executing, doing their assignment, and playing hard.
So, Coach, last question for you. We all know the implications of this game. You kind of mentioned it's not the case where you're turning your pads on Monday if you guys win this one. What's been the message to the team throughout this week?
Well, this is the playoffs right now. We want to be in the playoffs. It comes down to win this game and understanding how important that is. And so you win, you're in. At the same time, it's just another game. Go out there, do our job, execute, have a good time.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. That is William Penn head football coach Mark Benavidez. You can catch them this Saturday in Davenport against St. Ambrose. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock.